yeah, definitely. I remember when I used to meditate my ass off, but I still had a ton of champagne in my system. And I'm like, where is my peace? So yeah, I don't think one can happen without the other, in my never to be so humble opinion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Welcome to Recover Her, the podcast where your healing journey begins. I'm Heather Novak, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Tracey Oppenheim, a compassionate psychiatrist. Today, we embark on a path of recovery and self-discovery. We are dedicated to inspiring each and every one of you to overcome your struggles and live your best, most fulfilling life. Your recovery starts now, and we're here with you every step of the way.
It's only up from here, 'cause there's no one else that's...
Why, hello, Heather.
Hi, welcome back to Recover Her podcast. I'm grateful to be back here today in our brand new space.
Ooh.
Feels good in here, right?
Oh my God, feels so good.
I know. Good to take a little deep breath and have a conversation, to be back at it, recording some episodes. Yay.
You know what I was thinking in relation to this new space? It made me reflect on all of the different transitions we have going on.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Transitions can be tricky, right? I have a tendency to go kind of in high gear, as you know.
Yes.
During transitions, kind of a whirlwind of getting things done. I can be sometimes, to a fault, really get in high gear for production, getting things assembled or taken apart or, purged or putting back together. I mean, you name it during transition. So what I love the analogy, I think that I had read once about, the analogy of a trapeze artist, and you're swinging, and the transition is the trusting the process of letting go. So you're going to let go of that bar. You don't know if there's a net below you. And the transition is waiting to catch the other bar.
Ooh, I can feel that.
And then the swing. So I've definitely tried more often than not to allow myself some moments of, we started out this podcast episode with just like a deep breath. So I've allowed myself a little bit more time to sit and rest. But on the other side of some of those transitions, as I lay in my daily yoga practice in Shavasana, I will almost have these jolting moments that bring me back to what's just happened. Almost not like a blacking out of it all, but kind of coming to of, wow, did I just accomplish all that?
So what I was thinking about in relation to transition, and it could even be, we could even talk about it in reflection about how we came to have the new podcast space, right? Is that when you're in the zone, it can really bring out the best characteristics in you.
Absolutely.
And then when you're in a state of overwhelm, those characteristics, those very same ones that serve you so well, can also work against you. So
sure. Give me an example.
Okay. So one experience is with, say decorating or getting lights up or getting the things accomplished. My baseline when I'm working well for myself, when I'm on my own team versus working against myself is, I like to research. I want to know what the best options are. I want to know what all the options are.
You're the best at recon.
I want to compare and contrast, and I want to make sure that it's going to feel good and be the way that I want it to be.
Right.
And then I know for myself, when I'm in a state of overwhelm, I can use that to procrastinate. I can get stuck.
Yeah.
Like analysis paralysis. And I can feel you, right? Like when I'm at my best, you really vibe with that energy from me because it's useful, but
Right.
also when I'm not at my best and it's working against me, I can feel like the frustration that
Oh,
maybe it
yeah.
creates for you.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because it's proof almost, and we know this to be true, that energy attracts energy. So whatever it is that I'm bringing to the table, other people are going to experience that around me as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so, but I think it's so great, right? Because when you're in your element and you're grounded and you're taking care of yourself and you're clicking,
Yeah.
that energy that you bring in terms of, and I would love to hear what it feels like for you, but where you're like, whew, like it's like a breeze. It's like an energy, like where it's just,
Is it a wind or a breeze?
it can be both. It's a spectrum, but it's so, but
I feel myself, but I feel like it's a little bit more of a tornado at times, but getting things done, that if anyone kind of gets in my way, it's not that they'll be taken out, but the clearing of the path of accomplishing individual tasks, I get it done.
and that's such a strength, right? And when you're ungrounded, right, that same strength can work against you because then it becomes tension.
It's an exhausting doer. It's an exhausting, constant stay in motion so that I don't have to feel the migraine or I don't have to stop and reflect. I mean, yeah, so I get completely what you're saying. So the getting things done. So we had a podcast studio, of course, before that worked really well, but you were sharing that space with, you were seeing individual patients in that office as well. So it didn't serve our podcast studio because we couldn't leave things set up. So we transitioned into a full-time space that we'll rent out to other podcasters if that fits.
Yep, absolutely. And I know for myself, I kept getting like lazier and lazier with moving stuff. So sometimes patients would come in and they'd be like,
there's just a sofa in here. Where are you sitting? Right.
why are there bright lights and so many cameras?
Well, we got it done.
But I do think it's what I have always thought for myself is to appreciate my energies, and I can use that when I'm working against myself rather than being upset with myself. I can just see that as, okay, I'm not taking care of myself or something is off. But what I've really appreciated in our life together is that you also have to be balanced so that you can like hold and appreciate and hold up your partner's energy too, right? So if I'm not balanced, then your beautiful energy of getting things done and accomplished, right, like can be overwhelming. Just like like if you're not in the zone with yourself, my energy of slowness, for example, or like needing to think through things no longer seems so beautiful. It can feel, I imagine it could feel annoying at times, maybe.
Well, I think it's just an important understanding to know yourself and to know your value, know your worth, what works for you, what doesn't. And then when you know yourself, of course, that just helps any other relationship that you have that's around you in levels of intimacy, of course, for friendships and marriages and partners, everybody in your life, because as we all say, your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yes.
By all means.
And I think that's something that often gets missed, and that sometimes we can be so hyper-focused on ourselves and our own healing journey. But the purpose of that is not only for self-discovery, right? But it's for connection, to deepen your connection with others. And so you're so good at saying, if you're feeling a certain way about something or someone in the moment, being able to take a step back and just being grateful for that mirror that they're creating an opportunity for you to, look within.
Always.
Yeah.
And then other transitions too, because that is a good topic. Because you said, I think it was yesterday, that transitions can be hard. I always, a saying that comes to mind always in my head is that change is inevitable, growth is optional. So there is something to be said about change and transitions. And sometimes that does, we were talking about it being a wind or a breeze, that it feels fresh and
cleansing.
new and a rebirth of sorts. But change can be challenging as well as transitions.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's being in my 50s or what's shifted for me, but I had a lot of sameness in my life in many ways. You know, I stayed at the same school from, pre-K through high school. I did all my training from undergrad through fellowship, at one institution. And now I get restless with sameness. So it's very interesting that I think it's something must have shifted in me where I welcome it. I'm not saying that it can't be difficult at times or pull up, challenging feelings, but
I have a tendency to welcome it too.
Yeah, it's like thank God,
it.
right? Like I have this opportunity.
And you really have a choice, don't we? And to be really negative or think things are so hard or why is this happening to me? Or you can simply embrace the newness of it all. And I have a tendency to do that. I feel like that where everybody happens to be within their life is right where they're supposed to be, number one. But that I trust in this process of I really do. It's a blind faith and trust. I was thinking about that a lot over the last couple of days about my own spiritual development. And I trust that everything is as it should be. And that all of us individually are right where we're supposed to be. Everyone, friends of mine, other women that I work with, in business or in sobriety, friendships, our kids, everybody is right where they're supposed to be. And it's a letting go of what I think needs to happen next, right? So our kids are both going through some big transitions. Sam is graduating from high school, which is amazing. And I find it so interesting because people keep asking me.
Yes, you're getting it all the time.
All the time. And I have a lot of feelings. I'm able to access my full range of human emotion, which I'm grateful for. So I have moments, right, where it ebbs and flows and I feel everything, right? But the question that I've been getting, I'm sure the kids are so sick of hearing though, where are you going to school or what's next? But the question that a lot of other peers or people around me have asked is, how are you going to do when he leaves? What are you going to do?
What's going to happen to you?
How do you feel about it? Aren't you so sad? And I'm not sad at all. I'm so proud of where he is, where everyone in my life who I love so much, where everybody happens to be at. And I'm excited for him of what's next. I mean, I know I say this a lot of, I try to have I try to live in the here and now. The two most important questions you need to ask yourself are, where are you and what time is it? Where are you here? What time is it? It's now. I do reap the benefits of living in the moment. That is where I thrive. And sometimes being in the moment's hard, right? Because you're feeling those full range of human emotion. No, I don't want to feel this. And then just kind of accepting whatever the wave is of human emotion that I'm in. As far as kind of coming back to our topic of transition, so many people are asking me, aren't you just so devastated that he's going to be leaving? And that is the farthest from what I truly, honestly feel. I'm so excited for his life of what's next. First of all, it's not my life, it's his life. And I just simply get to witness it. What a blessing that's been.
But I think when people ask that question, because I know that when you say, I'm so excited for what's to come next, you're also so accepting of all the feelings that will come with that transition. And so I think people sometimes want to just shove you into one feeling corner when we know, so many different feelings can be held at one time. So
I know there'll be moments where I'm in his bedroom, just like sitting on his bed, wishing he was here so I could give him another hug. But
sometimes you do that on a Saturday night now. So
I know he's not here. It is such a beautiful progression of how they behave anyway. They're 18 and gone. They prepare us for whatever the next stage is of their development, right? Mm-hmm. With that pulling away. And you were saying the same thing recently.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
Well, Jordan just turned 20 and she came home in between winter semester ending and then spring summer classes.
Yeah. So she was
starting.
Just here.
So she came home from Michigan for, I don't know, I think like 3-4 days. It was very, very, very quick. And I just had this knowing that, she was entering this next stage of development. And what I mean by that is I could feel it, and we're not quite there, but I could feel it how her full adult life is going to be here very, very, very soon. And when kids shift into that, it's different, right? Like coming home is different. How you fit into their lives.
It's almost like you're a visitor
now. It's different. Like they're visiting you, you're visiting them. And I could feel that we were on the precipice of that. And
that next stage.
And so I'll tell you something funny. So when she left on Saturday, my nervous system for sure
was a mess.
It just went into shutdown. I got like so sleepy and I slept for like 5 hours on Saturday. I was just like, oof, like this is a lot. But the next day, she texted and she said she was feeling a little homesick. And I was so happy.
Yes. So. She misses being home and she misses me. Yeah, of course. But so you were able to lean into almost her unconscious pulling away. Like her little bit of I've got to get back to school. Like, bye.
I got things to do.
I've got my life to get back to. Right? And I think we're both in agreement that we're so grateful that they have incredible, fulfilling lives. And that is something that I've always tried to mirror for Sam, that I have my own life outside of being his mom.
Yes, absolutely.
So, work is so fulfilling, and we're having some upcoming guests that I'm really excited about that talk about financial independence for women and the importance of investing and things that I'm really passionate about today. And, just other women that we've learned so much from.
In terms of transitions and being able to step into things fully, because I do think it's important to name when things are happening. With our recent break and recording, we haven't talked about a new mark for you in terms of your sobriety.
Gosh, a few things have happened, but things don't just happen overnight either. No. They just unfold, right? It's in
the doing every day, right?
And I think of it almost too, Trace, as like an unraveling, whether it's been my own inner healing I've described my head with the migraines that I've had in the past is, just these tight knots that I've experienced, that I've unraveled some of that tension, allowing my nervous system to just feel more peace. And that comes with the trust. But yeah, I sold my home that I had lived in that our family had lived in for 24 years. And we closed at the end of December. And moving out and purging and letting go of a lot of that space. That was what, at the beginning of when we sat down to talk today, that I was thinking about that a lot in transition, that when I'm laying in Shavasana after yoga, I'm still thinking, almost shocked, and brought back to the moment of what just recently happened, because it's such a big letting go and a big move like that. So that was huge. And then with Bob and I separating, and that's been a long time coming. And it's done with such, I don't know, it's done with such thoughtfulness, tenderness, reverence, and you just put one foot in front of the other one day at a time. We'll talk more about that at some other time, because that our families there's nothing more important than our families.
100%.
And and then we've got, like we were saying, the kids moving on in different directions too. So in February, I celebrated 7 years of continuous sobriety, and that is a big accomplishment that I'm so proud of.
Yeah, and I always like to ask you kind of what that year in retrospect, how was that different than previous years, in terms of what it felt like, or learnings, and then even just the counting. Like, I find that interesting, like this idea. I think it's important to mark, but does it feel good to you to mark? Or I know there's very much a one day at a time approach. So when you hear 7 years, what does that bring up in your body?
Like a long fucking time.
Yeah.
What I've really thought about inside of this layer of sobriety, which, they talk about like the 7-year itch inside of marriages. And that sort of happened inside of 7 years of sobriety again, which it's just allowed me to peel another layer of myself away to kind of inspect it. Right. So what I've found is so there's been a lot of change, as we've mentioned, but inside those moments when I can just settle in, which I have more often than not, more peace, less fear, anxiety, anger, other darker emotions, right? But where did those feelings kind of go? They're still, of course, there, and I'm able to access that, but I've allowed myself to lean into more peace and acceptance, and oh my God, I so deserve that.
So is the itch like a naughtiness itch, or what is it?
So when I've allowed myself to, what is this peace, this feeling of these longer exhales, maybe some pauses, it feels a little bit foreign to me sometimes. So inside maybe that 7-year, maybe it's kind of umbrellaed, coupled with that sobriety, that when I feel so calm, I don't know if this is going to make sense at all, but that you almost look for, I think you mentioned the word naughtiness. When Sam was a baby, I can remember so few times when he was able to regulate his emotions so well. I was always kind of in awe of that, but he would catch himself before the badness was coming. I can feel the badness coming. And he just knew it was coming, right? So I think I unconsciously can look for something to rock my peace unconsciously. Maybe I'm activated by something, paying taxes. Maybe I'm activated by something from my previous life, and I want to just open up that can of worms again, which there's no point in doing that.
Does it feel like teenagery, like where you're wanting to like
some
fight,
adolescence will come back up? Could be for sure. But all I'm saying is that I today know that that's happening. There's this recognition that, why am I thinking that? Or why do I even care about that? I can kind of halt when I'm hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. I love that acronym. And observe myself a little bit more. And then I can slide back into the just do the next indicated right thing and put one foot in front of the other and go about my day one day at a time. But I'm noticing that the great news in this level of sobriety at 7 years is that I just simply have more peace. And I'm learning how to be really good friends with that feeling, because as I mentioned to you, it hasn't been a very common feeling within my nervous system over time.
I'm glad you get to explore that.
I know.
Now that's huge. And does the naughtiness, does it feel like sometimes that sobriety is associated with being good or on like good behavior? Or because you and I have had lots of conversation about this idea of what it means to, be expected to be a good girl, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that can be perceived in my brain as being boring. Just, okay, what next? And I can fill that space with projects, with busyness. So when I know that it's the right intention, as you brought up earlier, those are assets that I have of my character, of being able to get things done.
Yes.
But it can also be destructive for me as well, because it takes me farther away from the peace. Right? So it's not so much naughtiness, but there can be a feeling of irritability and discontent.
Restlessness?
A little restlessness. That's a good word. And when I'm feeling so peaceful, it's just something like a stone is thrown into a pond and it makes ripples. Instead of then just sitting there floating in the pond, I become the waves. Why? And I've just found myself asking that question. And then I can sit and pause and be with that space. So I'm grateful for that, for sure. But what I'm most grateful for with this level of continuous sobriety is that I've gotten to a place where I can experience so much more peace. And I feel like I'm allowing my nervous system to settle in, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm happy. I welcome it. Yeah. It's a lot easier. It's better for me to live in the moment when I'm not driven by anxiety or get it done or fear.
What's the difference between like sobriety and not drinking? Because I hear like the two things conflated a lot, but in your opinion?
Well, I think for me, it's great to not drink. I don't think anybody's body is necessarily meant to process ethanol in our system. So it's great to, if that's what you choose, awesome, to just simply make that choice. And I do make that choice. Sobriety is diving deeper. Sobriety is allowing me to look at my feelings, to look at my actions, to look at my behaviors, to look at, for me, I've been able to kind of dissect relationships, codependent ones, and instead become healthier, the healthiest version of myself that I hope to be by being interdependent as opposed to being codependent with other people. Not what can I do for you, but it's back and forth. What can we do for each other? Yeah, so sobriety is all about emotional sobriety to me. And it's really helpful when you take alcohol and that substance out of my system. And
so both are required.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, yeah, definitely. I remember when I used to meditate my ass off, but I still had a ton of champagne in my system. And I'm like, where is my peace? So, yeah, I don't think one can happen without the other, in my never to be so humble opinion. But we have so much more to talk about.
Yes, we do.
And we'll continue. We're going to keep coming back
Yes, let's go.
Yeah. Let us know, for our listeners, what other topics you want us to discuss, things that you'd like to hear about, and we will bring you all the hot topics.
Thanks,
See you next
guys.
time.
Me